Part 117. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1170. Latest website. Do you still remember that I came back when you were 10 years old? We had a lot of fun playing on the lawn with you that day, and I even took you out to buy things. Feng Zhishan sighed after finishing speaking. Feng Xiao sat there blankly, just muttering why it was like this. Lu Feng looked at the two of them and said, "Let's have dinner together tonight. No matter what, we are a family." Feng Zhishan nodded, and Lu Feng pulled Feng Xiao to stand up and walk outside. Both of them drank some wine at the dinner table, not talking about the present, but just talking about the past, the flowers, plants, cats, and dogs at home. Feng Xiao chatted happily, with a long-lost smile on his face. After drinking for 3 rounds, Feng Zhishan picked up the glass, as if he had made a big decision, looked at Feng Xiao and said, "I was emotional in the conference room that day, and those words really hurt you. No matter what he said, that we are all brothers, even if the bones are broken and the tendons are connected, I will apologize to you." As soon as these words came out, Feng Xiao was immediately moved, and he hurriedly picked up the wine glass in his hand and drank it down in one gulp. The two of them had a heart-to-heart talk and left separately. Lu Feng knew that some things should not be rushed and needed to be taken slowly. The next morning, Feng Zhishan couldn't wait any longer and called Feng Xiao directly to ask for a new start. Make a will. Feng Xiao didn't mention the will at all on the phone. Instead, he kept questioning whether he had any humanity at all. Even if he wanted to give up his inheritance rights, he would never give them to Feng Zhishan. In the past 2 days, Lu Feng also communicated with the hospital. Mr. Feng's situation must not be mentioned to anyone except Feng Xiao, and he signed a confidentiality agreement. Because Mr. Feng's medication status is different every day, there may be new changes every few days. It is normal for him to suddenly leave the state. After signing the confidentiality agreement, Feng Zhishan didn't know Mr. Feng's situation, and he suddenly became anxious, fearing that Mr. Feng would suddenly leave and the will would take effect. 2 days later, in the conference room of the Sun Hung Kai headquarters building, the 3 Feng family brothers gathered together again. During these 2 days, Feng Zhishan stayed in the Feng family's old house. Chatting with Feng Xiao about the past, Feng Xiao also had a different understanding of his second brother. Things always have to be resolved. I am entrusted by Mr. Feng, so I cannot let him down. The news in some gossipy newspapers outside these days, although it is not named, can be seen by anyone with a discerning eye. I still hope that the matter will be resolved as soon as possible. Lu Feng sat at the end and said, "You 3 brothers, let's talk." I still said the same thing. Make a new will. I am the eldest son in the family. According to the rules, I naturally have the greatest distribution rights. Moreover, my father's family was sorry for my mother in his early years. Zhishan and I should get more. As the eldest brother, we are not bullying Xiao, but Dad has already said this. My dad has made 3 wills in total, as well as a divorce agreement. The first and second wills clearly stated that the company's equity should be handed over to me. The divorce agreement also mentioned the distribution of property. The evidence is strong evidence in the court. Feng Zhishan put a copy of the materials on the table and spoke forcefully. The most recent will was made 2 years ago, 1 year after Feng Xiao returned. I also got news yesterday. The original servant at home said that my father's health had been very good before you came back, but it started to decline after you came back. You also forced my father to make this will. You have to make a fuss to your death, and you have to do it as a last resort, Feng Zhishan added. Lu Feng originally thought that these words would irritate Feng Xiao, but he did not expect that he would be very calm instead. He just said quietly, "Aside from spitting blood, what else will you do? It's just to find someone to give false testimony, and then go to court after my father's death litigation. Brother, I'm very disappointed in you. Don't you just want me to give up? Feng Xiao sneered at Feng Hixin. This brother who was more than 10 years older than him was so ridiculous and shameless. I'm not telling you to give up. Let's talk about it. You three brothers have settled this matter well. Let me mention that the management of the company will be handed over to the person who is best at managing the company. The annual dividends will be shared equally between the three of us. The house and car should be shared equally among three people. Li Shaoqi, who had always been quiet, suggested. Feng Xiao ignored Li Shouji's words and said, I will not give up my rights and interests, but I will transfer the part of the will about my inheritance of the company's equity to my second brother. I said I don't want anything, I just want. Let me tell you, money is not everything in this world, people must live with a conscience. No, 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 it should be yours or yours. I just want to take the share that belongs to me. And I think Dad is still here, so we can discuss dividing the inheritance. For his old man, this matter is it's so heartbreaking. Feng Hixin said to his eldest brother, the third child is right, you must have a conscience. Before Dad leaves, I don't want to talk about this matter again. As soon as Feng Hixin said this, both Feng Hixin and Li Shouji were dumbfounded, staring at him in disbelief. What agreement had the two reached in private? Feng Hixin looked a little ugly when he saw that the two had joined forces. He glanced at Li Shouji, and it was obvious that today was not the time to force the palace. Then let's do this for now, Xiao, you are not young anymore. You have to think carefully about any decision you make, and don't listen to others. After speaking, Li Xiaoji looked at Lu Feng and said, don't be childish. When Feng Xiao heard this, he responded simply, you'd better take care of yourself. After leaving the conference room, Feng Xiao walked very close to Feng Hixin, hugging his second brother and whispering, with a smile on his face from time to time. Even Lu Feng, who was following behind, was a little confused. In just 2 days, Feng Hixin was what kind of ecstasy soup was given to him, and the relationship quickly grew to this point. In the conference room, Feng Hixin looked very ugly. He lit a cigarette and said, I'm afraid it was Lu Feng who did this behind his back. I don't like this person. Whether you are doing business or being a person, you must have your own set of methods. If you are not capable, then you are not good. Li Xiaoji stood up and said, since you don't like it, then let him go. In your father's situation, you are now. I don't know, but if you leave in these 2 days, you will really be passive. After Li Shouji finished speaking, he walked outside. Feng Hixin's expression in the conference room darkened, and he seemed to have made some determination. He took out his mobile phone from his pocket and made a call. Find me a few people to deal with this person. My name is Lu Feng. After Feng Hixin hung up the phone, he then made another call to ask the media to intervene. Since this matter cannot be handled properly, then let's make the family scandal public. In the evening, Lu Feng had a meal at the Feng family residence. At the dinner table, Feng Xiao called a lawyer and personally wrote an authorization agreement, transferring all his rights and interests in the will to Feng Hixin. He felt sorry for his second brother who was a prodigal son. There is no reservation, and there is a childlike stubbornness in this no reservation. He said more than once during the dinner that he just wanted to make his elder brother feel uncomfortable, and good people in this world should be rewarded. Feng Hixin was very moved when he saw the transfer letter. He hugged his biological brother and expressed his heartfelt feelings on the spot, talking about our Feng family, as if the Feng family had become a whole at this moment. After the meal, Lu Feng did not stay long and stood up to say goodbye. The two brothers Feng Hixin sent Lu Feng to the door. Feng Hixin said, I think Xiao has been working too hard during this period. I just want to take a rest at home and just take care of my dad. Tomorrow I will go to the company to take a look at the situation and understand the situation with Jenkin, so as to prevent the company's senior management from being won over by Li Shaoqi. Just have someone to support you. I'll leave first. Lu Feng waved his hands towards the two of them and got into the car. The car sped away and went straight to Su Yorong's residence. After walking a few kilometers, Lu Feng suddenly felt that there was someone following him. He immediately became concerned. As soon as the green light turned on, he stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. Unfortunately, at the next intersection there was another person. At a red light, the car behind me stopped beside me. The door opened and 5 or 6 men wearing helmets came out, slapping the windows with their hands. "Get off the car. I'm going to make your mother happy. Get off the car. Can you get out of the car? I smashed your window." Lu Feng lowered the car window a little and asked the people, "What's going on? You almost hit my car, get out of the car." Lu Feng was sure that he didn't bump into anyone's car. These people were all wearing helmets and couldn't see their faces clearly. They had baseball bats in their hands. They seemed to be prepared and hurriedly raised the car windows. Seeing Lu Feng's alertness, the man in the lead picked up his stick and threw it directly at the side window without saying a word. At this moment, Lu Feng didn't care about the traffic lights. He stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. Not far away, the other car chased him from the side. He lowered the window and shouted to Lu Feng, "I know you, Lu Feng, get out of here as soon as possible. Get out of Xiangjiang, or I will kill you." Lu Feng drove around and around until he got rid of the group of people before he arrived at the downstairs of Su Yorong's house. He got out of the car and carefully checked that the surroundings were safe before jogging upstairs. Su Yorong had already returned. Seeing the urgency on his face, she asked, "What's wrong?" "I was harassed by some gangsters on the road." Lu Feng took off his coat and threw it aside. He sat down and thought for a while and said, "It's most likely that Feng Zhishan or Li Ziaji did it. By the way, your car glass is also broken. Got smashed." As long as everything is fine, Su Yorong felt a little scared after hearing what he said, and analyzed, it shouldn't be Li Shoji. He wouldn't do such a thing for Feng Zhishan. "You have annoyed me today. The Feng family matter is finally settled." Feng Xiao handed over the management of the company to Feng Zhishan. The contract was signed today. So fast, Su Yorong was also surprised and said in surprise, "Isn't Feng Xiao ignorant? He handed over tens of billions of inheritance in just a few days. How simple is his world? How simple is this, tens of billions, not a few dollars." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1171. Latest website. Lu Feng couldn't answer her question, so he handed it over in just a few days. This was something Lu Feng never expected. Perhaps in Feng Xiao's eyes, money is really just a number. After all, he has been short of it since he was a child. Pass money. The two chatted about the current situation. Lu Feng's cell phone on the coffee table rang. He picked up the phone and asked, "Who is this?" "Are you Lu Feng from mainland China?" The voice on the other end of the phone was very unruly and said, "Don't worry about who I am. How do you feel about tonight? This is just an appetizer. You are limited to 3 days. Get out of Xiangjiang within a day, otherwise I will be really rude next time." "Friend, what's the matter?" Before Lu Feng could say anything, the call was hung up. Lu Feng put down his phone, looked at Su Yorong, and said, "We provoked a gangster. It's okay. Leave this matter to me. It's just a few bad guys. I still know some people. Call me and ask." Su Yorong picked up the phone and called out. It took a long time for the other person to pick up the phone. "Who is it? Is this brother Pan Xiong? I'm Su Yorong from United Capital. Haven't you rested yet?" Su Yorong said to the phone. "That's it, I have something to ask you. I have a friend who was attacked today. I was threatened by several gangsters." Su Yorong was polite on the phone, then hung up the phone, looked at Lu Feng and said, it should be fine. Is everything okay now? Lu Feng looked at her in surprise and asked, who is Pan Xiang? If you don't know, then don't ask any more questions. There is a dinner party tomorrow, will you attend with me? Su Yurong asked. No, Lu Feng shook his head. Now he refused any meaningless dinner. Apart from bickering, it has no real use. The lights had been turned off, and Lu Feng was lying on the bed staring at the dim ceiling. He suddenly thought of a problem. He had no way of checking Feng Zhishan's backhand. Feng Zhishan is not Feng Xiao. The other party will not unconditionally trust Lu Feng, let alone do whatever Lu Feng says. Plus, it only takes a few days to deal with Feng Xiao. This person is not that simple. Lu Feng couldn't sleep thinking about this. He got up, lit a cigarette and thought about it. He originally planned to talk to Li Shouji tomorrow, but now it seems that it is not necessary. It is better to leave him some trouble. Moreover, Lu Feng didn't read the contents of the contract that day. It was necessary to go to Feng Xiao tomorrow to make a supplement. The next morning, there were about 10 people standing downstairs at Su Yurong, pacing back and forth, looking agitated. As soon as Lu Feng came downstairs, these people rushed over. When Lu Feng saw this scene, he thought he was looking for trouble and hurriedly backed away. Mr. Lu, please wait a moment, the leader, a short-haired man wearing sunglasses, shouted. Lu Feng stopped when he heard that they were speaking politely, but he was still cautious and said, I don't think I know any of them, do I? I'm mainly here to apologize to you today. The man came forward with someone, his face a little unnatural, and said, the day before yesterday, our people took a job, and I didn't expect it to be you, so I drove the car. I chased you and broke the car window. I am here to apologize to you today. This is 5,000 Hong Kong dollars as compensation for you. After the leading man finished speaking, a dozen or so people behind him all bent down and bowed. Mr. Lu, I'm sorry. Lu Feng looked at the money handed over and felt a little emotional. He didn't expect that in a few years, Su Yurong's network of contacts would have been so wide, and he knew everyone from all walks of life. Forget it about the money, I accept your apology. I still have things to do. When I'm free, I'll treat you to dinner. We don't know each other anymore, Lu Feng said politely. In the Sun Hong Kai headquarters building, Feng Zhishan arrived at the company early in the morning and held a meeting with the company's senior management to learn about the company's current situation. In Feng Xiao's office, Jenkins stood opposite, pointing to the folder on the table and said, the first few months of this year the situation is all here. Mr. Feng, I need to say that you have just signed a private agreement with Feng Xiao. It does not represent the company. Feng Xiao was approved by the board of directors. Everything you did today does not comply with the procedures. Feng Zhishan leaned on the chair, stared at Jenkins and said, Uncle Kun, you can be regarded as the veteran of the company. You are busy inside and outside my house. My father does not treat you badly. But I think it is not enough. I understand my eldest brother, he just wants to be tied to Li Shaoqi. I am different, I want to make Sun Hong Kai bigger, and you will definitely have a place on the board of directors by then. Don't say you are old. You are old and you have a son. The biggest investment in a person's life is to be with the right person. Now that I am sitting here, this is not in line with the process, but after a while, it will be in line with the process. If I worship Buddha at that time, I'm afraid I won't even be able to find the temple gate. I know, I'll talk to the board of directors, but I still suggest that you talk to Li Shaoqi as soon as possible, Jenkins suggested. I'll be there for this. Why don't you make an appointment for me? You two are old acquaintances and have a meal together. Okay, I'll make the arrangements. After Jenkins left, Feng Zhishan stood up and took a look at the office. He felt that it was too small. He still liked a more luxurious office. As long as Li Shaoqi is taken down, the rest will be much easier. When dad dies and the will comes into effect, he will be in control of the overall situation. Then he will give his eldest brother some money to get out. As for Feng Xiao, Feng Zhishan thought with a sinister smile on his face. Ever since he moved away from Xiangjiang, his mother had been telling him that if he had the chance, he must kill that bitch and get back everything that belongs to him. When Feng Xiao's mother died in childbirth, Feng Zhishan's mother, but I was happy for a long time. Lu Feng drove straight to Feng's house. When he arrived, Feng Xiao hadn't gotten up yet. The servant in the garden brought him a cup of tea. Lu Feng asked, "What time does he get up?" "I'm not sure. I don't get up until I'm tired of getting up every day," the servant replied. "What's the point of this? He really can sleep." Lu Feng was also a little speechless. This servant had worked in the Feng family for many years and said that Feng Xiao had been like this since he was a child. It can be said that he has been pampered since he was a child. His food, clothing, housing, and transportation were arranged by someone. Even toothpaste was squeezed onto his toothbrush every day. It was a serious life for a young master. Lu Feng looked at the time and it was already 10:30 in the morning. Looking back now, he seemed to have never asked him to meet in the morning. He couldn't help but walk to the door of the room and patted the door. "Are you awake?" There was a reply from inside, and then 3 or 4 servants opened the door and walked in. It took a full hour for them to come out. Feng Xiao had put on new clothes and looked much better. "Brother Feng, are you here so early?" Feng Xiao greeted. "Let's have lunch together. I happen to be visiting my dad in the afternoon." "Don't look at your dad for now. Your dad is very stable in the hospital. Can you show me the agreement you and your second brother wrote that day?" Lu Feng asked him. "It is an unconditional transfer of the rights you have in your will, all rights and interests. He has realized his mistake. He talked to me a lot that night and cried so much that he was in tears. No matter what, we are a family. He is my second brother." Feng Xiao sat down and said, "This family is it's me and him who are in charge. It's all the same, an elder brother is like a father." "Stop brother being like father, bring me the agreement," Lu Feng said with a slight frown. It seems that in Feng Xiao's eyes, Mr. Feng used to run the company and he was responsible for eating, drinking, and having fun. Now that Mr. Feng is leaving soon, Feng Zhishan can take his place and let him live his old life. Lu Feng could finally see that he was not filial at all, but he was missing a rich backer. He didn't know what to do and cried for so long. Now that he thought he had found it, he was not so depressed. Feng Xiao asked someone to bring the agreement. Lu Feng looked through it and asked, "Do you have servants to take care of you in your daily life? Do you have to squeeze out toothpaste? Isn't this at home? Besides, squeezing out toothpaste is so easy. I learned it when I went to study abroad when I was 18 years old," Feng Xiao said quite proudly. Lu Feng raised his head and stared at him in disbelief. "Brother Feng, no one will take care of you when you go back," Feng Xiao said in disbelief. Lu Feng didn't know what to say. He was going back for the Chinese New Year. In the middle of winter, he had to put on cotton pants and go out to make charcoal. The charcoal hammer in the northern winter was colder than the heart that had been let down. There are many clauses in the agreement, but most of them are useless, such as protecting his younger brother and letting Feng Xiao live in the Feng family's old house. Everything must be based on Feng Xiao's feelings. The content is very long, and it can be summed up in one sentence: Feng Zhishan should take good care of him, but he did not mention any specific needs. Everyone has different understanding of these 3 words. "This agreement is not good, you must come up with a supplementary clause," Lu Feng said solemnly. "My second brother will not harm me," Feng Xiao said casually. Lu Feng raised his head and looked at him. He had always felt that Feng Xiao was extremely easy to manipulate in front of him, but Lu Feng forgot one thing. People who are easy to manipulate will be manipulated by many people. This thing is just like picking up girls. The girls you think are good are the same as others. So Brother Feng will harm you? Lu Feng asked. Feng Xiao stopped talking and said, for a long time, what should we do? In this way, you write me a power of attorney, and I will fully represent you, and then draft a supplementary agreement. The content must be familiar, such as giving you dividends every year and your rights and interests. As long as these contents are violated, the agreement will be invalid. You still enjoy the rights of the original will, Lu Feng said. Lu Feng's idea was simple. He wanted to include Lu Feng's support for the board of directors of GFN Group in it, so that he would have a guarantee. Isn't this good? I've already made an agreement with my second brother. Feng Xiao didn't think Feng Zhishan would harm him. In his eyes, they were all family members. Listen to me and call the lawyer over. You call your second brother and tell him that you want to add some content. Don't let him come. Just send a lawyer. Lu Feng thought for a moment and said, don't follow. He said, don't talk about what I mentioned while I'm here. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1172. Latest website. Feng Xiao nodded very sensibly, and called him. Feng Xiao first asked about his situation in the company, and then said that there were some problems with the agreement and that a supplementary clause was needed. The main purpose was to clarify the rights and interests in the will, which needed to be listed separately. He no need, just send a lawyer over. Feng Zhishan was not worried and agreed repeatedly. He also asked Mr. Feng how he was doing today on the phone. After hanging up the phone, Feng Xiao looked at Lu Feng and said, the lawyer is here, and he will definitely not agree to add those terms. As long as your second brother doesn't come, it will be easy for everyone else. We are not trying to harm him, but just in case. Lu Feng explained. The painting Mr. Feng once gave him had a leashed dog on it, and now he wants to put a rope around Feng Zhishan's neck. The two were chatting, and the servant handed over some newspapers, saying that they were related to the Feng family. Lu Feng picked up a newspaper and flipped through it, his expression a little unhappy. The headline of this newspaper is that the wealthy Feng family is once again grudges, and mysterious people from mainland China are meddling in family affairs. Below is a profile photo of Lu Feng. It looks like it was taken at a dinner party. The lights are dim. Outsiders may not know it. People who are familiar with it will know it is Lu Feng at a glance. The content is even more random, saying that Lu Feng interfered in the Feng family's family affairs and fished in troubled waters, and at the end it was hinted that Lu Feng was an internationally wanted criminal. Who wrote this? Feng Xiao said with some dissatisfaction. These reports all point to you, both implicit and explicit, which makes people very uncomfortable. Of course Lu Feng knew who did this. All the major newspapers were hinting at the identity of the wanted criminal, undoubtedly targeting him. If he didn't leave soon, there would be trouble. After today's matters have been discussed, I will go back. Lu Feng put away the newspaper and said to Feng Xiao, you must learn to take care of yourself, and at the same time, remember that you should not tell anyone about your father's situation, you know. Why do you want to go back suddenly? Why don't you stay a little longer? Feng Xiao wanted to entertain Lu Feng. There are still things going on in the company, and the situation this year is more complicated. Lu Feng declined. Feng Xiao didn't say anything, he just stayed together for lunch. At the dinner table, Feng Xiao told Lu Feng that Mr. Feng's current condition was more dangerous, he was in the dying stage, and he might die at any time, relying entirely on machines and medicine. In other words, the Feng family had money and could afford it, but if it were an ordinary family, they would have held funerals long ago. Just after lunch, Feng Zhishan's lawyer arrived. There were 3 people in suits and leather shoes, and they looked quite professional. The leading man was in his 40s, with a Chinese character face, a crew cut, and an upright image. When he saw Feng Xiao and Lu Feng, he said hello. Then let's go to the talk hall. There's nothing big going on this time. We just want to make a supplementary agreement. The content has been drafted. Lu Feng picked up a folder from the side and stood up and walked inside. After everyone sat down, Lu Feng asked the man, "What do you call him?" "My surname is Lu. Just call me Lawyer Lu." "Are you Mr. Feng's lawyer?" Lawyer Lu asked. "I'm not a lawyer, this is my business card." Lu Feng handed over his business card and said, "I have been given some face by all parties here in Xiangjiang. Mr. Feng's good friend, you have been following Feng's Heshan." The other party took a look at the business card and didn't dare to neglect it. He said hurriedly, "Yes, I have been working with Mr. Feng for several years when I was in Singapore. It seems that you are quite trusted by him. I wonder how much I will give you a year," Lu Feng asked. Lawyer Lu felt something was wrong. Why was he always asking about the relationship between himself and Feng's Heshan? He said, "Let's get down to business. Let's take a look at this supplementary agreement first." "Don't worry," Lu Feng reached out to hold the folder and asked, "I want to know your income." The other party glanced at Feng Xiao, smiled awkwardly and said, "More than 20,000 Hong Kong dollars per month. Mr. Feng is still very good to us people." "More than 20,000? Is this called money?" Lu Feng laughed, took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit one, then put it on the table and said, "I have a deal to discuss with you. This deal, it's your salary for 10 years, are you interested?" Lawyer Liu's eyes suddenly lit up when he heard this. He nodded humbly and said, "Mr. Liu, please give me more advice." "Don't worry, I'll definitely remind you. You have to understand that only by following the Feng family can you have food, not by following Feng's Heshan." Lu Feng patted the folder with his hand and said, "Let's take a look." Lawyer Lu was stunned. At this moment, he realized that there was something wrong with the contract. He picked up the folder and looked through it. He did add the detailed clauses in the will, and added the question of the ownership of these clauses, making it clear that these rights and interests were gifts. However, there are several articles that clearly state that they are conditional gifts. Moreover, the terms inside are quite confusing, and the various explanations and supplements are confusing. To sum up, it can be summarized in one sentence: conditional gift, the conditions are very vague, and the gift can be withdrawn at any time. This supplementary clause directly distorted the direction of the entire agreement. The remaining two people did not speak after reading it and looked at Lawyer Lu. At this moment, Lawyer Lu kept thinking about what Lu Feng had just said. It was obvious that this kind of issue needed to be reported to Feng's Heshan. The problem was that Feng's Heshan had given them full authority to handle this matter, as long as they stamped it and mixed it into the original agreement. I believe Feng's Heshan doesn't know either. Lawyer Lu pondered. Lu Feng saw what he was thinking, and quickly turned around and gestured to Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao was also stunned and looked behind him. "Check," Lu Feng whispered. Feng Xiao hurriedly waved to the servant, and soon took the check holder. Lu Feng took it, took a pen and quickly filled in 3 million Hong Kong dollars on it, pushed it in front of Lawyer Lu, and wrote lightly, 180 million Hong Kong dollars, it's really not much money. Feng Xiao stared at him, dumbfounded. Lawyer Lu turned back and glanced at his two young lawyers. The money was enough for them to buy a house and land. After thinking for a few seconds, he collected the check and said, "Then let's handle it normally, it's all a small matter. It's pretty quick to do, as soon as all the seals are stamped, the job is basically done. That ticket. Don't worry, just tell the bank today and you can redeem it tomorrow," Lu Feng said. After Lawyer Lu finished handling the relevant matters and left with others, Feng Xiao became a little anxious and said to Lu Feng, "Brother Feng, how did you spend my money?" "Is this your business?" Lu Feng asked. "Yes." Doing your business and spending your money, is there any problem? This. Feng Xiao couldn't refute this, but checking and balancing Feng Zhishan was not what he had originally thought about. This was purely a temporary addition by Lu Feng. The two chatted for a while in the afternoon, and Lu Feng warned him not to tell anyone about Mr. Feng's situation no matter what happened. At about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Lu Feng returned to his residence and called his crew to tell them to return to the mainland tomorrow. In the evening, Lu Feng went to the newspapers. As expected, some evening newspapers still put the Feng family's affairs on the headlines. This time, Lu Feng's last name was directly mentioned, which was full of warning. "Would you like to buy it?" the boss urged. "Buy." Lu Feng took out a few dollars and threw it to him, then took the newspaper away. When she returned to her residence, Su Yurong had already returned. When she saw Lu Feng coming back, she sat in front of the dressing table, tidying up, and said, "There is a small dinner party tonight for high-end people. Let's go together." Lu Feng threw the newspaper in front of her and said, "I'm leaving tomorrow. It's better not to go out and show up, so as not to cause trouble." Su Yurong read the newspaper, frowned and said, "I'm asking you to leave. I can see that I don't want to fall out with you, Li Shaoqi. No matter who it is, it doesn't matter. Britain is also divided now. The capital industry needs me. They have invested heavily in me, but the court wants to arrest me. I made a lot of money there, so we have the current situation." Lu Feng sat down and smoked his cigarette. "Believe it or not, I am really going to be arrested here and sent back to the UK for interrogation. It won't be long before the Schroeder Group becomes anxious." "Isn't John hoping that something will happen to you?" Su Yurong asked curiously. "He hopes to sell Jiafeng at a good price before anything happens to me. If something happens to me, Jiafeng will be in danger immediately, and its valuation in the world will quickly collapse. A valuation of tens of billions of dollars is just one pile foam." Lu Feng leaned on the sofa and said, "Now I finally understand what it means to love and hate at the same time. Then since you are leaving tomorrow, I won't go and will stay with you at home." "Huh? Don't, you should go and participate. You have to socialize," Lu Feng advised. "No." Su Yurong stood up and walked towards the sofa, sat directly in Lu Feng's arms, put her head against Lu Feng's, and said softly, "Go to bed early. We should be pure between us. Isn't it pure enough? Then go to the bedroom to purify it." "Sublime it," Su Yurong said with a smile. "You are a dirty person. You should be more upright." Lu Feng was a little itchy from her torment. "Integrity? Ha 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 ha." Su Yurong smiled and rolled his eyes. "You are so upright." Lu Feng couldn't help but laugh because of her. He took a puff of smoke and said, "I have to go back tomorrow. I also have to ask about the company's recent situation. I have to go to bed early." "No problem, go to bed at 12 o'clock. Lu Feng raised his head and glanced at the clock on the table. It was only a little past 7 in the evening. In the past 5 hours, he was probably going to experience what it meant to be devoured. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng reached for the mobile phone on the bedside table, preparing to call Wei Yandan to ask about the situation. "Who should I call?" Su Yurong leaned on the bed and teased, "Why is it so exciting?" "Stop talking," Lu Feng said angrily. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1173. Latest website. On the phone, Wei Yandan told Lu Feng that an agreement had been signed for the lithography machine and the money had been transferred. It had been loaded onto the cargo ship yesterday and would arrive at the port in Thailand in a month. The third phase of the factory in Tianjin has also been officially completed, and the interior decoration of the headquarters building has officially begun. Everything is going smoothly. The only disturbance is that Sony, Toshiba, and Philips jointly sued the DVD department, mainly for the DVD player. For infringement, VCD-compatible system, drive these three directions. However, GFN has its own independent research and development path. According to Lyokan, everyone has the same idea and is taking the same path. GFN's domestic patent registration was several days earlier than theirs. Mobile phone sales were very good, with monthly sales stable at about 3,000 units. However, there were some minor problems and encounters with counterfeiters. A man named Wang Hai sued GXN mobile phone to court and he bought a GXN mobile phone. But was told that the free calls were only for another GXN mobile phone, and took GXN to court for false advertising. Lu Feng listened to the report for half an hour. Su Yurong beside him had finished smoking a cigarette and said impatiently, "You can go back and work again tomorrow, can't you?" "Okay, that's it for now. I'll talk about the internal situation in the company when I get back. I'll deal with some pressing matters here first." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Early the next morning, Lu Feng had a simple breakfast and packed his things. Before getting in the car, he called Feng Xiao and warned him again not to tell anyone about his father's situation. They said goodbye on the way. I called Feng Zhishan and Li Ziaji, just to tell them that I had left. As the plane took off, Lu Feng leaned back and closed his eyes to rest. The distance was short, and the landing started in less than half an hour. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng got off the plane and drove straight to the company. When he arrived at the company, the receptionist saw Lu Feng hurriedly saying hello, and people coming and going also said hello. After entering the elevator door was about to close when it suddenly opened again. A man in his 40s stepped in, his eyes flashed across Lu Feng's face, he stood there without saying a word, and pressed the button for the 6th floor. "Which department are you in?" Lu Feng asked. The man looked back and replied calmly, "Business." "Why are you going to the 6th floor for business? Isn't your office on the 4th floor?" Lu Feng asked. "Go to the CEO to handle some matters." The man still spoke in an understatement. "What's your position?" "I've never seen you before," Lu Feng continued to ask. "Second level department, business manager." After the man said that, the elevator door opened and he walked out without looking back. The commerce department is a secondary department under the marketing department and is managed by Zhu Lidong. Logically speaking, such a middle-level manager should take the initiative to say hello when he sees Lu Feng, but now it is neither salty nor cold. Lu Feng's intuition tells him that there may be something wrong with the company's middle-level management. Problem. After reaching the 7th floor, Lu Feng stood at the door of his office, paused, and ordered to the senior president's office next to him, "Get Mr. Wei and the person in charge of human resources here." 10 minutes later, a middle-aged man knocked on the door and walked in. He was polite to Lu Feng and cautiously sat on the sofa opposite. After a while, Wei Yandan knocked on the door and walked in, and saw Lu Feng. Surprised, "You came back so early." "After the matter is settled, I'll be back naturally." "Take a seat." Lu Feng waved to the secretary of the CEO's office who was standing at the door, brought in a few cups of tea, then closed the door and left. Wei Yandan originally thought that Lu Feng was going to ask about the 2 lawsuits, but seeing that the person sitting next to him was the HR manager, she felt that something was not right. "Ask a personal question, how has the status of our middle management been in the past few months?" Lu Feng asked. The HR manager was dumbfounded when he heard this. What is status? He had no idea what the big boss wanted to ask, so he looked at Mr. Wei, hoping that his boss would come to his rescue. "What's the status?" "The working status is pretty good. Our elimination rate of middle management every quarter is still very high," Wei Yandan replied. Psychological state, mentality towards the company. Wei Yandan thought for a while, and she had a keen sense of what Lu Feng saw when he entered the company. In addition, she had recently felt that Gudley was too close to many middle-level managers, and she had heard a lot of gossip. "Manager who, how much do you know about Gudley's recent news?" Wei Yandan asked. I've talked to several managers, and they seem to have a private circle. Gudley likes to hold parties, and he has a European and American habit, so many people are willing to contact him. He feels that Western-style manager who said. From the habits of dressing up, eating Western food, holding parties, photography, traveling, etc., Gudley started to win over these management teams from this aspect. I heard that he also lectured on the company's model and directors at various events. Bureau system. Lu Feng sat there without saying a word after listening. In this era, wearing a suit and eating Western food is the most foreign thing and the most bourgeois sentiment. If you add a foreigner to it, it will definitely make your face shine. You must know that in this era, if a foreign face appears on the street, he will be watched like a monkey. Even in the next 10 years, mobile phones will have a camera function, and every foreigner who sees them will take a photo. Lu Feng even suspected that Gudley had become a disciple of Su Yorong. She had done so well in Xiangjiang in just a few years. Thanks to the dinner parties she held every now and then, she brought together people from all walks of life. How could she not have a wide network of contacts? Okay, you go back and do your work, Lu Feng said to Manager Hu. After Manager Hu left, Wei Yandan already sensed the seriousness of the situation and asked cautiously, how about the company issue a document to impose restrictions? Restrictions? People will poke you in the back. People will say privately that this is the restriction of domestic enterprises. They even have to control their lives after get off work. It's not like them, who are so free. Lu Feng lit a cigarette. He said to Wei Yandan, you will resent the teacher who disciplines you, but you will never resent the second-rate kids outside of school who play with you. Actually, this matter is not that serious. The social atmosphere is quite open now. Why don't you understand? Lu Feng looked at Wei Yandan and asked, you also participated? No, Wei Yandan waved her hands repeatedly, I don't have time to participate in these activities. This is really a cruel move. From now on, increase performance appraisals and don't mention any after get-off-work activities. Just treat it as if you don't know. You senior managers must also be mentally prepared. At the end of this year, you will most likely I won't sit in the position of employee representative on the board of directors, Lu Feng said towards Wei Yandan. Wei Yandan was a little confused when he heard this prediction and said, it's not that serious, right? Let's go through the semi-annual report in June 1st. Those middle managers really thought that they would be free after John came and live a happy life without performance pressure and having big parties every day. Lu Feng sighed and said, let them do it next year, let's experience it, and seize the time to put the chip factory into production in 1 month. In terms of asset division, the chip factory will be assigned to the R/U0026D company. Wei Yandan could tell that Lu Feng seemed to have given up. If the company changed people, his job would be gone. Arrange these 2 days. I will go to the headquarters building to inspect the situation, and then go to Tianjin, Lu Feng ordered. Wei Yandan nodded and stood up and went out. A few minutes after leaving, the person in charge of finance knocked on the door and walked in. When he saw Lu Feng, his face was filled with a smile and he said, Mr. Lu, the price of tungsten ore has gone up like crazy recently, the contracts of several other presidents have been redeemed, do you want to redeem them? How much is the price now compared to when you first bought it? Lu Feng asked. The current rate of return on your account has reached 500%. I'm asking you about the price of tungsten ore. Last year, the price of tungsten concentrate was $10,000 per ton, which was the average price over the past few years. Now it has reached as high as $28,000 per ton. I think it has reached its peak. Many overseas media have called this matter, tungsten, regarding the Demon King incident. I'm afraid some countries will take action to control it, the financial person in charge said. When will the contract be fulfilled? May 20th. What day is it today? Lu Feng asked with a frown. Today is the last day of March and tomorrow is April Fool's Day. Don't worry, you still have a month to play. You don't have to worry about this. I will tell you when it's time to redeem it, Lu Feng ordered. After the financial director left, Lu Feng took out the calendar card and tore it apart until today. He sighed in his heart. In just over 2 months, he would have been back for 7 years. The past 7 years can be said to be more exciting than the previous life. He stared at the date on the calendar and suddenly thought of something. He calculated it with his fingers and suddenly realized that next month was Zhang Fengxia's due date. I was so busy during the New Year period that I wanted to call and ask, but when I calculated the time difference, it was midnight over there, so I didn't call. After a simple meal at noon, Lu Feng lay on the sofa and thought about the past few years. He also sighed in his heart. He received a phone call from Gao Jiwei. Part of the shares of GMA Food had been sold. With a capital of 100 million, ask Lu Feng to create an account so that he can have the accountant transfer the money. Lu Feng gave him his account number. On the phone, Gao Jiwei still regretted Lu Feng's sale and hoped that he could mention GMA Foods more in the future. Lu Feng just said that some companies make money, but it is a pity that this is not his ambition. He manages the business well and remember not to blindly expand in the next few years. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng lay on the sofa and fell asleep without realizing it. He had many dreams, but unfortunately he couldn't remember anything when he woke up. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1174. Latest website. In the evening, Lu Feng went downstairs and drove home. Zhang Xiaoyan hadn't come back yet. Duo brought a few classmates to make a fuss at home. Lu Feng thought they were too noisy, so he simply played the DVD for them. Dad, I'm hungry, Duo shouted, you didn't bring me a gift when you came back. When you're hungry, check what's in the refrigerator and heat it up in the microwave. Bring any gifts. There isn't much in Xiangjiang. When you're on summer vacation, ask your mother to take you to Xiangjiang, Lu Feng said in a confused way. The night outside was already dark. Lu Feng calculated the time difference and determined that it was morning in the United States. He picked up his mobile phone and went out. He lit a cigarette and walked towards the beach not far away. He dialed the number while blowing the sea breeze. Zhang Fengxia's phone number. After ringing several times but no one answered, Lu Feng felt a little worried. Finally someone picked up the phone and asked in English, "Who is this?" "I'm Lu Feng, Fengxia, how are you doing lately?" Lu Feng asked with concern, "Is the due date coming soon?" "You still remember me," Zhang Fengxia said with a hint of disappointment in her voice. "In the past few days, everything was fine in the hospital I was admitted to the day before yesterday. I've been quite busy recently," Lu Feng explained a few words. "I know you're busy, so I didn't bother you. I'm fine here. Let me tell you news, this child is a daughter," Zhang Fengxia tentatively said. "My daughter is fine. It's Daddy's little cotton-padded jacket. Which hospital are you in? Let's go to the best private hospital and I can help you make arrangements." "No, the Mount Sinai hospital I booked is already very good. I still contacted my parents. Things have reached the point where they are today, and they have to admit that my mother will take care of me after a while. By the way, you can name the child, she was born in the United States, and I want her to become an American citizen," Zhang Fengxia said. Lu Feng originally wanted to call him Xiao Xiao, but this name was too casual. He thought for a moment and said, "How about calling me Meow Meow? It's good. I plan to take her back when she is 1 year old to meet you. As long as the child can fly and come back at any time, I will let the plane pick you up," Lu Feng said hurriedly. The two chatted for a long time. Lu Feng repeatedly expressed his apology to her on the phone and would make up for the mother and daughter in the future. Lu Feng wanted to send her more money, but Zhang Fengxia refused on the phone. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng called the company's financial officer and transferred $2 million to Zhang Fengxia's bank account before turning back and heading home. The house was already brightly lit. Zhang Xiaoyan came back to discipline her and asked her driver to send the children away. Duo was already sitting there obediently doing her homework. "When did you come back?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked without looking back as she tidied up the sofa. "In the morning, I'll be back soon after finishing the matter." "Why are you still running on the beach? I think you seem to be calling someone." "How windy is it on the beach?" she continued to organize. "Who are you talking to? It's such a lively conversation." "No one, just an old friend, just polite." Lu Feng hurriedly stopped her inquiry and asked, "What's for dinner?" "Fumanlu has ordered food and it will be delivered shortly." Zhang Xiaoyan sat down and stared at Lu Feng. Lu Feng admitted that he did not blink when he lied, but at this moment he did not dare to meet her eyes. He subconsciously looked aside and walked towards Duo to see how she was studying. "It's summer vacation in 2 or 3 months, right? When school starts, it's time for the big kids to be in 3rd grade. Duo raised her head, rolled her eyes at him, and said, "Dad, after this summer vacation, I will be in 5th grade, and I will take the high school entrance examination next summer." Lu Feng smiled awkwardly and told her that after the exam, she could go wherever she wanted on his private jet. After a while, 3 cooks came, and the things they delivered were all semi-finished products. It was faster to cook at home. Now Zhang Xiaoyan rarely cooks. She feels tired, so she reached an agreement with the restaurant called Fumanlu to let her cook. They process it and make it at home. Although we no longer have a nanny at home, housekeeping is responsible for cleaning the house every 2 or 3 days. The 3 cooks were very quick and packed up and left in less than 15 minutes. As the family of 3 ate at the dinner table, Zhang Xiaoyan chatted about Huasha's recent situation. This year she established 7 of her own brands, established marketing, branding, advertising and other departments, and expanded a large factory in Zhejiang. The market competition is fierce this year. Fortunately, Huasha is the largest brand among private enterprises. Tons of products like laundry, soap, bar oil, and cream are for sale. Lu Feng inquired about her current staff size, production scale, and market share. After getting the data, he was secretly stunned. After a rough estimate, Huasha's wholesale and private label products have a market share of more than 100%. 30. Zhang Fengxia had established enough sales channels for her before. Various OEM and wholesale merchants on the market came to her. The profit margin of wholesale was less than 10%. It relied on large quantities and low profit margins. In the market in a short period of time, almost formed an invincible position. In addition, Zhang Xiaoyan is a more down-to-earth person, and the quantity of her own brand is relatively large. Others pay 30 grams of cream for 2 yuan, and 45 grams of her brand. It is purely using price war to squeeze others out and build a moat for itself. Recently, we sent several teams to the north to open up the market there. Several people in the management said they wanted to develop overseas markets, but now they don't have enough money. They are talking about backdoor listings. Zhang Xiaoyan ate her food and said, "Me too." After researching for a long time, I still feel that the road to listing is not good, and I feel more at ease with the money. Just keep calm and do it." Lu Feng listened to her business philosophy about Huasha all night, and he summed it up in one sentence. She still had the unique kindness and simplicity of rural people in her heart. This philosophy reminded Lu Feng of a person, Tao Baiwa. Perhaps she is more down-to-earth than herself, at least her ideas are not like those of a modern businessman playing with capital. At this moment, Europe, London Futures Exchange. As the market opened, everyone held their breath and stared at the price of tungsten ore. Some people even shouted in a low voice that it would go up, go up, go up. The price of tungsten ore has gone up like crazy in the past month, and all 3-month tungsten ore contracts have been sold out. Now even if you have money you can't buy it. As soon as the market opened, the price of tungsten ore skyrocketed. The trading volume could be counted on one hand. In just a few minutes, the price went from 28,000 per ton to 40,000. This price was a sky-high price that had never been seen in history. Who has a tungsten ore futures contract? I'll buy it for 45,000, someone shouted in the trading hall. Everyone at the scene looked at each other. Now that I have a tungsten ore futures contract in my hand, it is equivalent to owning mutai with a price of 2,600 yuan, and it is an absolute representative of wealth. Almost all the chips are concentrated in the hands of Schroders and several major Wall Street funds. They have the final say whether it will rise or fall. People on these two sides know that it is impossible for everyone to play until May, and the price must be allowed to come down before delivery. Because in this world it is not just South Africa that has tungsten mines, other countries have considerable amounts of ore stored in their national treasury. In the office of Schroders Investment Bank, John looked at the flashing numbers on the computer without any disturbance in his heart. The office door was knocked open and several managers walked in. Today's situation is still the same. When will we ship? According to the latest South African survey data, several American tungsten ore refining companies in South Africa have stopped production. I heard that there is still a stalemate, a manager said. A few of us believe that Wall Street will not insist on the delivery date. In any case, these transaction parties are American companies. If they cannot trade on the date, they will have to pay liquidated damages, another person said. There is also a worry that if they cannot deliver the goods, they will use domestic reserves in the United States for delivery. The risks here are relatively high. Lufeng's tungsten mine in South Africa cannot be controlled by just betting on futures. These companies, and there is news that South Africa is now negotiating with the United States, this matter will become a bargaining chip. John leaned in his position and said nothing. Britain still had some control over South Africa. He had received the news yesterday that the United States was indeed talking to South Africa, which included many higher-level demands. He estimated that the United States would not agree easily. Come down. There are many forces involved in this matter, and many people are making use of it. As far as he knows, China's Foreign Affairs Department has also been having a headache recently. After all, no one can prove that Lufeng is Lufeng and not the invisible force stretched out by China. Hand. There is still more than a month. Why are you anxious? Saras and Robertson are not anxious, so why should I be anxious? John said with confidence. Pull the price up again, and let the major financial media publicize the good news more. Feng Group, push him to the bright side. 10 minutes later, amid everyone's exclamations, the price of tungsten ore broke through the $40,000 mark and settled at $46,000 per ton. The major financial media seemed to be going crazy, using the sensational name "The Tungsten Demon King is coming" on their front pages. At the same time, the stocks of other related products rose one after another. Lufeng's name is resounding throughout the European financial world. In order to gain sales, major media have made up his story like a myth, a model of self-made wealth, a fugitive in Europe, a hero playing on Wall Street, and so on. On Wall Street, Robertson and Saras were sitting in a conference room. The two had a brief exchange on the current situation. They had also recently contacted several tungsten ore processing companies in South Africa, and the news they received was that they did not have many tungsten ore processing companies. The inventory can be delivered for May futures, but they are already seeking support from the Treasury and there is no problem with delivery in May. Saras read through the information, took a puff of his cigar, smiled at Robertson and said, "Next, Barry Schroeder. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1175. Latest website. The two people thought very simply. If long futures are allowed, short selling is allowed. They bought short all the futures contracts in the market. However, there are still some contracts in many securities companies. These contracts are used by various countries or companies to purchase tungsten mineral. The current price is so high, mainly because of speculation about the suspension of production of the South African mining industry controlled by Lufeng. If you sell all the futures contracts in your hand at the highest point, let Schroeder take over, and then open a short order to cooperate with the resumption of production of the South African tungsten mine. The tungsten ore processing plant in South Africa delivered the products as scheduled, and the price of tungsten ore will definitely plummet by then. Saras and Robertson's idea is very simple, that is, to eat both ends, go long first, and then go short. The two hit it off immediately with this plan. Whether it is the tungsten ore or the US Tungsten Ore Refining Company in South Africa, they can control it. Recently, major financial newspapers have been boasting about Lufeng and GFN Group, as if this company will become the world's leader in high-end manufacturing in the next moment. Watanabe had already noticed these reports. He was called over and reprimanded, and Asian companies were not allowed to be in the limelight again. If GFN Group took advantage of this trend to raise another amount of money, it might really be in the field of high-end manufacturing. Take the lead. Watanabe she hates Lufeng with a passion. GFN Group is the most popular among the companies in the countries in Asia that he is responsible for. Even many high-end companies in Fuzhou have been negotiating with him recently and are trying their best to find ways to do so. They use contracts, markets, finance, industry standards, and other means to win over Fuzhou enterprises. Watanabe Shi's task is very simple. He uses financial markets or other means to win over Fuzhou's domestic companies that have core and leading technologies, so that Fuzhou's companies can cooperate with Silicon Valley companies to achieve technology sharing or joint development. Companies with high-end manufacturing will be co-opted, while companies without core technologies will be suppressed. That's the problem. GFN Group doesn't have any powerful tricks, but it is still the most popular. European and American companies don't know that much about Asia. Some people have become Lufeng bragging. On some occasions, it seems that they don't brag about Lufeng. I don't understand today's high-end manufacturing. Lufeng himself doesn't even know that his current influence in Europe can only be described in 3 words, Lusk. That day, the price of tungsten ore once exceeded the US $50,000 mark. At 8 o'clock in the morning in China, Lufeng was sitting at the dining table eating breakfast. Zhang Xiaoyan urged her. The financial channel on TV was playing last night's European futures event. According to foreign media reports, at 1:20 p.m. local time, the price of tungsten ore officially exceeded the $50,000 mark, and then fell back. As of the closing price, it was 47,000 yuan per ton. This price is the highest in history. It is relatively compared with last month's price of US $8,700 per ton, it has increased nearly 6 times. Foreign media called this the time of the tungsten demon king. Next, I would like to ask futures analyst Li Xiaoxiao to explain to us the investment logic, the host said seriously. Duo had already carried his skull bag. Zhang Xiaoyan ordered her to pack her things and said to Lufeng, "Let's go. Slow down on the road. It's already past 8 o'clock. Aren't you late?" Lufeng wondered. Zhang Xiaoyan glanced at Duo and said angrily, "If you're late, just be late. It's not me who's late anyway." Duo said angrily and stubbornly, "If you are late, you will be late. The worst you can do is stand at the door of the class." "What's your attitude?" Zhang Xiaoyan had already started fighting, and the two of them walked towards the door noisily. Lu Feng sighed and muttered, "Going to school is like killing me. If you love studying but don't study, it's of no use. Such a big kid needs to be coaxed." When Zhang Xiaoyan heard this, she turned around and muttered a few words to Lu Feng before driving her to school. The analyst on TV said seriously, "The application scope of tungsten ore is relatively small. Although this incident is related to the large-scale suspension of production of tungsten mines in South Africa, we need to dig deeper into the industrial logic. This is a precursor to industrial upgrading. I think tungsten ore will have a wider range of applications in the future, and there will be new breakthroughs in materials science. Now is the best time to invest in tungsten ore futures." Lu Feng got a little tired of hearing this, so he turned off the TV and took a rest after a simple meal. He left the house at 9:30 in the morning and rushed to the company. He will start inspecting the headquarters building and new factory area tomorrow. As soon as he sat in the car, Lu Feng's cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and asked, "Who is this?" "Mr. Lu, it's me, Saras." A deep voice came from the other end of the phone. "It's been almost a month, and we talked again. What do you want to say? Hurry up. I still have things to do." "I think you want to go to bed in a hurry, right?" Lu Feng said straightforwardly. "It's still the same thing. I hope you will announce the resumption of tungsten mine production in a week. This will definitely be helpful to you. As far as I know, you are not happy with Schroeder now. When the day you and Schroeder broke up for good, you needed new friends," Saras said. "So, Wall Street is my new friend? I just want to know a question. When I betray Schroeder now, does it mean that I can betray Wall Street in the future? You know, the most important thing for me is my brothers," Lu Feng said categorically. "I will not allow anyone to bully my brother, even if there is a gap between us." Saras was a little speechless when he heard this. He had investigated Lu Feng's background, but these words always felt so unpleasant coming from his mouth. "That's all. I have to go to work and you need to rest too. Are you sure you want to bear the consequences of this?" Saras asked. "I will bear everything, and I also believe that I can bear everything. When I came to this world, I firmly believed that I can create, enjoy, and bear. It is not the threat of a certain person that makes me deny the meaning of my existence. Do you understand?" Lu Feng said loudly. When Saras heard this, he said okay several times and then hung up the phone. Lu Feng threw his cell phone on the passenger seat, thinking to himself that there might be some commotion in Africa recently. He thought for a moment and drove straight to the company. When he got to the office, he called Manager Ma first. At this moment, it is 10 o'clock in the morning in China and 4 o'clock in the middle of the night in South Africa. There is loud gunfire in major mines. The mine guards are shooting continuously. The phones in the mine offices are always open, reporting to the company headquarters. Manager Ma divided the management into 3 shifts. In the past week, the situation here has deteriorated very badly. Several tungsten alloy processing companies have stopped communicating with them. The local municipal government has also been bribed. The local court has ruled that the situation will be better. Feng's South African tungsten industry defaulted on the contract and asked to resume work. But the problem is that the local verdict and the High Court's verdict are completely different. Manager Ma invited a local lawyer group to appeal, and some people in several large mines started to make trouble again, claiming that they were the original employees, and the mines owed them wages, and even more, some even said that they were small shareholders of the mining industry and demanded that a shareholders meeting be held to resume production. Let them fire guns into the air without causing casualties. If the minerals are not robbed, retreat as much as possible and wait until daybreak. Electrify the power grid we prepared earlier and ask them to turn on the searchlights. The scene looked like a battle scene, but for them, this situation was something they had to experience every night. Those who came to attack the mine were not local residents, and most of them were admitted from abroad. Refugees, some of these people are firing guns, and they are not afraid of death, which is very troublesome. The international phone on the table rang, and a clerk picked up the phone and said, "Who is this?" "It's me, Lu Feng. Haven't you gotten off work yet?" Lu Feng called and realized the time difference. The clerk was in a serious mood and said in a strange tone, "We are fighting here every day. Where can I find a comfortable headquarters? I will get off work at that time." "Who is it?" Manager Ma turned around and asked. The phone number from the domestic headquarters said it was Mr. Lu. "Mr. Lu." Boom. Suddenly there was a piercing sound of gunfire outside, and everyone's nerves suddenly became tense. Manager Ma shouted to everyone, "Don't stand by the window, everyone retreat to the back room to see if someone climbed over the wall and came in." The curtains were opened a little, and I saw a few people wandering outside the wall downstairs, trying to find a breakthrough and shooting into the sky from time to time. Only then did everyone feel at ease. The courtyard wall here is very high and has barbed wire on it. Ordinary people cannot enter at all. Manager Ma then walked over and took the phone and said, "Mr. Lu, this is Ma Wanjun." Lu Feng felt nervous when he heard the situation there, and said with relief, "Mr. Ma, thank you for your hard work. It was fine some time ago." "This is all the commotion recently," Ma Wanjun briefly reported the situation. After listening to this, Lu Feng realized that the situation in South Africa was worse than he imagined. It was like a warlord fighting situation. Coupled with what Sarah said on the phone today, it was obvious that they were already sure. The next month is very critical. As long as a few large mines are occupied and a few so-called shareholders emerge, we will lose our right to speak. If the local municipal government cannot communicate, please call our local Foreign Affairs Department. Let the higher level leaders handle it, Lu Feng ordered. "We have tried everything you mentioned, but it doesn't work, and I can't talk to the higher UPS. Now these refugees are a thorn in the side. The locals dare not care about them at all. The international community is paying close attention to them. As long as there is a refugee, death, that is a big deal, and they are now being roasted on the fire. We are also in a dilemma. I heard that the United States is putting pressure on them, and some recent international news is very unfavorable to them." Ma Wanjun was embarrassed, "and the locals are putting pressure on them. An investigation began into our acquisition, which they believed did not comply with process." Lu Feng began to realize the seriousness of the matter. Once the tungsten mines were found to have problems with the acquisition process, the ownership of these tungsten mines would no longer be his. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1176. Latest website. Lu Feng asked Ma Wanjun to guard the tungsten mine. If he couldn't hold it anymore, he could hire more people. He would contact the Foreign Affairs Department today to communicate and ask him to sort out all the acquisition information. If he found any loopholes in it, he would report it to the supervisor at the time. Seller to add. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng hurriedly called the Foreign Affairs Department through the city. The call went to the Africa Department of the Foreign Affairs Department. Lu Feng explained the situation of the company. The other party told Lu Feng that they were coordinating this matter, but there was not much room for it. Firstly, it was South Africa's special historical reasons, and secondly, the United States and Europe were exerting pressure and influence. It can be said that South Africa has become a diplomatic battlefield. What happened now is because of Lu Feng. Lu Feng was speechless when he heard these words. The other party told Lu Feng that there was not much they could do now except to ensure the safety of personnel. Is there any other way to keep South Africa neutral on this matter? Lu Feng asked. The other end of the phone was quite helpless and made a funny suggestion, saying, "I heard that you are very eloquent. You can try to talk to Mandela." Lu Feng reluctantly expressed his gratitude after hearing this answer, and then hung up the phone. In the office, the afternoon sunlight passed through the glass, making the room dazzling. Lu Feng rubbed his face with his hands a little tiredly. He felt powerless. Jiafeng was too big. This behemoth was attacked and the air leaked everywhere. He blocked it. Endless holes. In his last life, he attended some CEO classes, and the bosses there complained to them that managing a large company is very tiring, and that the most comfortable person in the world has a personal asset of about 1 billion. At that time, many students in the class joked about this in private, and now Lu Feng can definitely feel it. There was a knock on the office door. Zhu Lidong opened the door and walked in. He said, "Mr. Lu, I talked to Mr. Wei about the party held by Goodly. I thought it was very serious. Today I have a meeting with the marketing department. It's time to order a few people." Lu Feng breathed a long sigh of relief and leaned back on his seat and said, "Hold it however you want. There are tens of thousands of people in the whole company and you can't control it. Go tell Liukin that the management and core personnel of the R/U0026D company are not allowed to participate. Anyone who participates will be directly expelled." Zhu Lidong was stunned by these words, sat down and said, "What should we do about the board meeting at the end of that year? I can't control that much anymore. There are fires everywhere now." Lu Feng took out a pack of cigarettes and lit one and said, "The situation in South Africa is very anxious. Our threat is not enough to get back the lost goods, but it is easy to lose South Africa of minerals." Lu Feng took a drag on his cigarette and laughed at himself. If the mine is lost, isn't it the same as coming to the door with a knife and asking for the account? If the account is not returned, the knife has been taken away. Only then did Zhu Lidong realize the seriousness of the matter and hurriedly inquired, "I feel that I have been very tired in the past few years. There are endless things to deal with. I have to find someone to transport the lithography machine back. I also have to take care of the Feng family's affairs. Now I still have to take care of the affairs in Africa." Lu Feng he sighed and said, "I'm really tired. For overseas matters, let Kevin do it. The overseas marketing department is very free now, and he knows more about international affairs," Zhu Lidong suggested. "Let him be idle, I'm afraid I can't handle it well. Speaking of the overseas marketing department, except for a few neighboring countries, we don't have much market outside. Can their department be responsible for its own profits and losses?" Lu Feng asked Rode. "It has been operating well in the past few months, mainly in markets such as Singapore, Thailand, and the Philippines. The average monthly profit is around 20 to 30 million. Last month, he came to the headquarters and had a meal with me. He said that now if the overseas market doesn't work, he won't even be able to see you," Zhu Lidong said. Lu Feng smiled and said, "It was ambitious at first, but who knew the situation would be like now? Since the department can be responsible for its own profits and losses, it will not be abolished. Things are urgent over there, so I plan to go there myself. Mr. Zhu, what I want to say to you this year, there is only one expectation, and that is to ensure that 1 or 2 people appear on the board of directors as much as possible." Zhu Lidong thought for a while, nodded, and said insinuatingly, "Even if we are eliminated next year, I will be at home waiting for you to form a new company. There is no need to wait at home. If you want to continue to follow me in the second half of the year, you can continue to work at Hurricane Capital," Lu Feng said. When Zhu Lidong heard this, he felt confident and nodded without saying anything. "By the way, I won't be inspecting the new headquarters and the third phase of the Tianjin factory. Your senior leaders will form a group to take a look. As long as the ambassador has good contact, I will set off," Lu Feng ordered. After Zhu Lidong left, Lu Feng stood upstairs and looked outside. He just smoked silently and read a lot of information about South Africa in the evening. After returning home, Zhang Xiaoyan called and said that she was working overtime, and Lu Feng went to pick up Duo Duo himself. The two simply ordered 4 dishes and 1 soup outside, and then returned home after eating. "Dad, Why are you looking so sad? Duoduoban asked while lying on the sofa. A little girl is lying there in a skirt. Doesn't that look good? Lu Feng scolded while lying on the sofa. Didn't I learn this from you? Duoduo said, putting her skirt away. Dad is worried about the other side of the world. Lu Feng had no one to complain to, so he simply told Duoduo about the situation in South Africa. So many people praise him, not to praise him, but to encourage him to accept refugees. Those people are so poor. They don't work but just eat. Duoduo said angrily, if I were Mandela, I don't want refugees, I would rather others scold me. You don't understand. Once a name is called out, it's not that easy to take back. There are also other benefits associated with it, such as investment, international support, and various cooperation, Lu Feng said casually. Then I don't want it? Who is willing to take in poor people? If I had a country, I would take in rich people and smart people. Rich people come and give me money, and smart people work for me. Lu Feng thought for a moment, looked at her and said, that is the country you are talking about. The father and daughter were chatting intermittently. Lu Feng suddenly remembered Meow Meow and asked Duoduo, do you want to have a sister? My mother is pregnant. You kid, what are you talking about? Lu Feng said angrily, who taught you? I mean, for example, this kid was picked up from the trash can. If you like it, I'll go out for a walk and see if I can pick one up. That must be good. I have a sister, so I can ask her to bring me things, serve tea and water, and instruct her to do anything, Duoduo said proudly. You have the bones of a capitalist, Lu Feng sighed. At around 10 o'clock in the evening, Zhang Xiaoyan came back with a tired face. When she entered, she checked Duoduo's homework and then went to wash up. On the bed, Lu Feng leaned on the bedside and said, I may have to go out in the next 2 days. Go, stop talking, and go to sleep. I'm so tired that I don't even want to breathe. After Zhang Xiaoyan finished speaking, she stopped moving. After a while, she raised her head and said, you want to leave? I'm also going to Hebei on a business trip in a few days. Duoduo, what to do? The two looked at each other and stopped talking. In the past few years, under the careful care of the couple, the child's ability to survive alone is obviously much higher than that of other children. This is also the pain of entrepreneurs. He can take care of everyone but cannot take care of his children. Home. Find a nanny. It won't be a problem if this continues for a long time, Lu Feng suggested. Nanny? You sold the child. Neither of us knows. Let the family do it, your mother or my mother, Zhang Xiaoyan said. Lu Feng scratched his head when he heard this. It was a big deal for each of these two families, but he didn't feel comfortable leaving it to an outsider. After much thought, he didn't have anyone to entrust him to. Let's find a distant relative from our hometown, someone with good character and trustworthiness. Lu Feng lay down and said, that's it, I don't want the two families to be in trouble. Zhang Xiaoyan nodded in agreement. The next morning, Lu Feng received a call from the ambassador, saying that he could come and have a look. Mandela might not necessarily meet him, but several senior officials here could meet, which would be beneficial to ensuring the safety of GFN Group personnel. When the time comes, let Lu Feng bring along the procedures for purchasing all the tungsten ores and get support from the authorities. After Lu Feng agreed, he immediately notified the crew to prepare the plane for departure at any time. In Europe, the price of tungsten ore is still soaring. After Saras and Robertson finalized their plan, the price of tungsten ore rose rapidly, reaching the $70,000 mark during the session. The market has closed, and there are more than a dozen people sitting in the conference room of Schroeder's investment bank headquarters. John flipped through the information in his hand, looked at everyone and asked, what do they mean by actively raising prices? Are they forcing their own people to death? Everyone at the scene looked at each other, not daring to speak, and each looked at the analysis form in their hands. Tell me about it. John pointed at someone casually and said. Tiger Fund and Quantum Fund are relatively familiar with these companies. I think they may have mastered other tungsten ore channels and completely covered global tungsten ore futures. As soon as these words came out, you looked at me and I looked at you without saying anything. Is it possible that this is an illusion? Bring the price to a high level and start shipping. Everyone started talking about it. There were problems in talking about futures in the form of stocks. After talking for a long time, they finally came to the conclusion that it still depends on whether the basic situation of these companies can be reversed. Seeing that no one could explain the reason, John had no choice but to announce the adjournment of the meeting. Afterwards, he planned to make a phone call with Lu Feng to ask about the recent situation. At the same time, he was also invited to attend a high-level meeting. At the meeting, he learned what had happened recently in South Africa, and he suddenly felt something isn't quite right. After the meeting dispersed, John hurriedly caught up with the Schroeder CEO who was walking in front. He stepped forward and whispered, "We cannot allow the United States to exert pressure on South Africa. We have put billions of dollars on the recent futures. And we have a lot of assets over there." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1177. Latest website. This matter is no longer about money. I have also responded to the futures issue. Don't worry, I believe they will work hard. John just felt relieved after hearing this. What he didn't know was that this matter had risen to an extremely high level. Britain was working hard to prevent the sun from setting, whether it was Hong Kong or its influence on Africa. It shows that the sun never sets and may be about to set. Lu Feng communicated with Ma Wanjun every day and rushed to the airport as soon as he got approval. As the plane took off, Lu Feng secretly hoped that the trip would go smoothly. As the plane landed in Cape Town, the embassy's car was already waiting at the airport. After getting in the car, Lu Feng briefly understood the situation. The people from the embassy asked him not to go to the company and stay at the embassy's residence first. The current situation is relatively dangerous. In the evening, Lu Feng met the domestic envoys stationed in the local area. After a few polite words, Lu Feng asked, "We can't guarantee our local industry." The United States protested, saying that our acquisition was illegal and putting pressure on us. You also know our current relationship with the United States. I can only tell you that the situation is very complicated now. This may be the most complicated situation in history. If the local government they think our acquisition is illegal, so we have no choice but to file a lawsuit, the ambassador said helplessly. What is their basis for judgment? We are involved in a monopoly and there was no state consent during the acquisition and the process was illegal. Lu Feng looked at the food in front of him without any appetite. After asking about the international situation, he went back to rest. After arriving in the room, he called Ma Wanjun as soon as possible to communicate. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening, and Lu Feng received several calls from the embassy one after another. They tried hard to communicate, presented various evidences, and told the other party that people and property in our country were being violated, but the other party ignored them at all. The phone call lasted until around 1 o'clock in the evening. The powerlessness deep in Lu Feng's heart made him extremely decadent. For the first time, he felt what it means to be a weak country without diplomacy. No matter how reasonable you are, people will not pay much attention to you, and they will even talk nonsense. Useless. At 2 o'clock in the middle of the night, Lu Feng was about to fall asleep when the phone rang suddenly. Lu Feng woke up as if he was having a stress reaction, grabbed the phone with his hand and asked, "What's the latest situation? Can I meet them?" "Lu Feng, Fengxia has given birth." "I am Fengxia's mother." The voice on the other end of the phone was very cold. "Really? That's great, thank you for your hard work, Fengxia." Lu Feng sat up and said, "Mother and daughter are safe. It's all good." I'm calling you because I think it's necessary for you as the father of your child to inform you. Also, as Feng Xia's mother, I think you should put your marriage on the agenda. In general, can you give me a title? Feng Xia's mother asked. Lu Feng sat there, stunned, and said after a while, I will definitely handle this matter well, don't worry. When will we deal with it properly? The other party asked. After I finish dealing with these bad things at hand, Feng Xia needs to rest and cultivate now, what do you think? Besides, I can't run away, so I'm not in a hurry, Lu Feng explained. The other party didn't press hard and hung up the phone after saying a few words. Lu Feng leaned on the bedside and couldn't sleep. He lit a cigarette and smoked silently. Xiangjiang, daytime, after Lu Feng left, the Feng family's affairs disappeared from the media. Feng Zhishan and his eldest brother Feng Zhixian reached a reconciliation privately. Now everything is stable, but Feng Zhishan doesn't know about Mr. Feng's situation. Last time I learned from the doctor that time is running out. As long as Mr. Feng dies, Feng Zhishan can only work in the company under Feng Xiao's name. This is not what he wants, not to mention that the rights have not been transferred. He cannot let Sun Hongkai invest in his own financial company, let alone expand his real estate. Add financial model. In the office, Feng Zhishan had just finished a meeting and looked a little worried as he sat there. Opposite him stood Jenkin, who treated his father's old friend relatively favorably. My house is 20 years old, right? Feng Zhishan asked casually. I bought the land in 1971 and moved in 1973. It has been 23 years. The backyard and the study row were built in 1978. Your father had no money at that time and built it in batches, Jenkin answered. It's time to repair and repair, let's do this, use a sum of money to repair it, let Xiao stay in the hotel first, you go and notify us, and find a construction team by the way, Feng Zhishan ordered. Feng Xiao received a call the next day, asking him to pack his things and move out, saying that he wanted to repair the house. Feng Xiao was quite happy, so he took 2 suitcases and drove away from the Feng family villa. In less than 2 days, construction scaffolding was erected here and the entire yard was surrounded by water. In addition to going to the hospital every day and waiting for the house to be repaired, Feng Xiao made several calls to Feng Zhishan, but no one answered. Feng Xiao also thought that his second brother was too busy, so he didn't take it to heart. A week later, several lawyers and people from the court came to him and wanted to drive the car away. This is my car. Feng Xiao looked confused at the 7 or 8 people in front of him and asked, are you here to rob it? Sorry, this car belongs to Sun Hongkai and is used by Chairman Feng. It is the property of the company and needs to be recovered now, the lawyer replied. Mr. Feng is my father, and Sun Hongkai belongs to my family. Feng Xiao already felt that something was wrong. I was entrusted by Mr. Feng Zhishan. Now the ownership of Sun Hongkai belongs to him, including part of the property under Mr. Feng's name. According to the property distribution, this car must be recovered. After the lawyer finished speaking, he handed him the relevant information. Feng Xiao was dumbfounded after reading it. He even said it was impossible and hurriedly took out his mobile phone to call Feng Zhishan, but he couldn't get through at all. As soon as the lawyers and people from the court drove away, the hotel front desk staff came over and asked, are you Mr. Feng who lives in the 888 Supreme Suite? It's me, what's wrong? Sorry, the room fee is due today. Do you want to renew? The front desk asked with a smile. Isn't it a half-year renewal? Feng Xiao said anxiously, it's not the house my brother opened for me. He said he would let me live here for half a year. Sorry, I only renewed it for 1 week and it expires today. Feng Xiao panicked. He came out in a hurry. He only brought some clothes and his wallet from home. Fortunately, he had his bank card with him. He took out the card and handed it to the other party. The service staff swiped the card and said with some embarrassment, This card shows that it is frozen. Feng Xiao handed over 2 more cards, all of which were frozen. Fortunately, he still had 10,000 yuan in cash in his bag, which he had thrown into the bag at some point. To renew the room payment, Feng Xiao couldn't get through to his second brother, so he had to call Jenkin. Jenkin couldn't get through, so he had to go to the company to see what was going on. Compared with the last time he went to the company, no matter who he faced was smiling, this time he was greeted with only indifference. He went directly upstairs. Feng Zhishan was not in the office, so he blocked Jenkin and asked what happened. Jenkin looked at Feng Xiao in front of him with a little pity, took a deep breath and said, "They are just collecting their own property. Your car belongs to the company, so it must be taken back, and the company must strictly manage it. As for freezing the card, that's because these cards are all your dad's money." "What happened to me spending my father's money?" Feng Xiao's eyes widened with disbelief on his face. "The handling of these funds in your father's inheritance will all belong to your eldest brother. What you got was the equity of the company, and you gave it to your second brother unconditionally. Do you understand?" Jenkin said in a deep voice. "But my second brother said that he is responsible for managing the company and I don't have to take care of anything. I have the right to spend money. That was a private agreement between the two of you, and there is no written agreement. You can leave it at any time." Jenkin looked at him and comforted him, "You live a good life and find a place to work. You can only get a few thousand yuan a month, which is enough for you live." Thousands of dollars. Feng Xiao couldn't believe this and said to Jenkin, "Uncle Kun, where is my second brother? How could he do this? My dad hasn't left yet. He told me this at the beginning." Jenkin obviously didn't want to hear this nonsense. He fumbled around in his pocket for a while, took out several $1,000s and put it in Feng Xiao's hand, saying, "For the sake of calling me Uncle Kun, you can take this money. Come on, I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." Feng Xiao was dumbfounded when he looked at the money in his hand. He couldn't believe that this was Uncle Kun who thought about everything for him. For a moment, he felt like the world was so cold. Feng Xiao's first thought was to find a lawyer to sue, but then he thought that the contract he signed was in the old villa, and he had nothing in his hands. For a moment he didn't know what to do. After standing there in shock for a long time, he suddenly remembered that he and Lu Feng had gone to the mainland to handle municipal affairs, but the other party did not allow them to get under the car. Thinking of this, Feng Xiao pushed aside Feng Zhishan's office and sat inside to wait. He wanted to see how his second brother behaved with him now. After waiting for a long time, no one was seen. In the evening, Feng Xiao stood next to his car and waited. The driver told Feng Zhishan the situation. Feng Zhishan was very angry and complained to the people around him, "Where did he learn this rogue method? Wait for me at the back door in another car. Doesn't he like to be stuck in traffic? Then let him be stuck in traffic. Let's see how long he can last." Feng Xiao was stuck in traffic for several days and couldn't find anyone. Wandering around in the company had caused many people in the company to talk about it. As a result, he was kicked out by the security guards. When he came home late at night, he found someone watching at home and almost got beaten. The money in his hand was almost running out, and Feng Xiao felt a sense of desolation and desperation. He ran to the hospital and stood in front of Mr. Feng's ward and cried loudly. He was determined to completely fall out with Feng Zhishan. He went to the media to expose the matter. After the interview, the newspaper did not publish it. He ran to the newspaper office to ask why it was not published. They ignored him at all and was kicked out directly. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1178. Latest website. For the first time, Feng Xiao felt that there were such unreasonable people in the world. The most scoundrel person he had ever met in his life was probably Lu Feng. In the past, this kind of gangster always had a smile in front of him. Feng Xiao had no money in his hand. He was sitting in the hotel and contacted his former friends, hoping that someone could help him in this matter. When he called, some people hung up the phone immediately when they heard that it was him, while others supported him. Hesitating and shirking. "I don't want to borrow any money from you, it's just 200,000, what's the point?" Feng Xiao was very unhappy on the phone. When did 200,000 count to him? "Brother Feng, you don't need the 200,000 yuan," he said with a smile that day on the phone. "Stop making trouble. I'm encountering something now." Feng Xiao was also straight-tempered and said everything like he was pouring beans out of a bamboo tube. When the other end of the phone heard this, he said, "Don't worry, if others don't help you, I will definitely help you. I still have something to do here, so hang up first." Before Feng Xiao could speak, the call was hung up, and no one answered when he called again. The room fee was due, and Feng Xiao couldn't borrow the money, so he had to go downstairs with his belongings. Standing in the hall, he watched people coming and going. Everyone had a smile on their face, so calm. But he didn't know where to go next. He had been to 5-star hotels too many times, but he had never felt so cold and confused in the luxurious reception hall. "Oh, isn't this Mr. Feng?" came a joking voice. Feng Xiao followed the voice and saw that he was a young man in his late 20s, accompanied by 2 girls dressed in a flirtatious manner. Feng Xiao had some impression of him. They had played sports cars together before, but he couldn't afford anything particularly luxurious. "Car, I don't really like playing with him." "Li Ziwen," Feng Xiao called out his name with a hint of surprise. "It's rare that you still remember me." Li Ziwen glanced at Feng Xiao's suitcase and teased, "What are you doing, Mr. Feng? I heard that you are in trouble. Someone called me and said, you are borrowing money everywhere." Feng Xiao looked a little embarrassed, forced a smile, and said, "The news spread very quickly. I didn't expect you to hear about it too. We are also friends. Do you have any cash on hand?" "What? Borrow money from me?" "Ha ha ha ha." Li Zixuan smiled wildly, staring at Feng Xiao and said, "Young Master Feng, will this day happen to you too? Didn't you think I was poor before? I can't afford a Lamborghini. How dare you hang out with a kid from a rich family like you?" Feng Xiao was stunned when he heard this, and said hurriedly, "I never thought you were poor. The main reason is that your car can't keep up with us when running up hills. Then when you play on the track, don't we call you that? It's you busy, no time." "Am I busy? Why do you think I'm so busy?" Li Ziwen leaned his face forward and said, "I'm not humming busy now, please drive out your sports car." "What am I?" Feng Xiao explained his current situation very seriously. Okay, I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Do you want money?" Li Ziwen took out his wallet, took out 1,000 Hong Kong dollars and threw it on the ground, saying, "Here you go." Feng Xiao looked at the banknotes that fell at his feet with a very ugly face. He was filled with shame and anger, and said to Li Ziwen, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. You have no tutor and no quality. I don't want it anymore." "Ouch, the beggar still thinks the food is sour? You have quality. A few years ago, you drove a sports car to show off your power," Li Ziwen said sarcastically. "When did I show off my power?" Feng Xiao felt extremely wronged. He always maintained a low profile and modesty when interacting with friends around him. "Why don't you show off your power? Those people are surrounding you, smiling when they look at you. That bullshit luxury car team is just a bunch of sycophants. You have such a good car, but you drive like a piece of shit. I really don't know you." How can you have the nerve to think that you are talented and yet they want to be a racing driver? Bah, Li Ziwen was full of fire and sarcastically said, you don't even look at what you look like. Without your father, who are you? You. How can you talk like that? I want to borrow or not. Feng Xiao looked ugly, turned around and left. Feng Xiao couldn't believe that his friend who used to have nice words with him now looked like this. He dragged his suitcase and walked on the road, feeling sad in his heart. He hadn't changed his clothes for a day, and he had walked for an hour. My feet started to hurt. The physical torture combined with what he was experiencing at this moment made him sit on the roadside with tears in his eyes. Looking back on the past, it seemed as if those experiences, those smiling faces, and those concerns were all a dream. A red sports car turned from the intersection. Su Yurong glanced out casually and saw Feng Xiao, thinking he was being deceived. He parked the car on the side of the road and got out of the car to find that it was really him. What are you doing sitting on the roadside? Su Yurong walked over and asked. When Feng Xiao saw Su Yurong stood up hurriedly and told the story, he said anxiously, can you help me call Brother Feng? I don't even have a mobile phone now. Seeing his state, Su Yurong secretly thought, just call Lu Feng, this is just an abandoned child. I can't contact him either. You should take care of yourself. I still have some change here, so you can take it. Su Yurong handed him the several thousand yuan in his hand and ordered, find a job as soon as possible. Feng Xiao looked at the money in his hand, feeling for the first time that a few $1,000s was such a thick stack. It was already getting late, the lights were starting to turn on, and this was still the bustling Xiangjiang. It was a pity that Feng Xiao's feeling about all this at this moment changed from heaven to hell. He didn't dare to go to a luxurious hotel, so he walked into a fly restaurant for the first time in his life, ordered a portion of fried rice, and ate it hungrily. Feng Xiao went to the company many times in the past few days, but still found nothing. People here seemed to have lost sight of him overnight, and they all avoided him. His former friends were either strangers or made sarcastic remarks. Within a few days, he saw the world as it originally was. As night fell, there were still clouds of sports cars on the streets in the bustling area, but it was a pity that he was missing. But who cares? Just like those dinner parties with music and singing every night, they are still held enthusiastically no matter who goes or who stays. Feng Xiao wanted to seek justice, but the money in his hand no longer supported him to continue. A few days later, he had no choice but to find a job as a restaurant waiter, which provided food and accommodation for 1,800 Hong Kong dollars a month. He also wanted to apply for clerkships or other decent jobs in the past. However, these jobs did not include room and board, and he only had a diploma and no work experience. After several interviews, no one wanted him. He got to know the people here quite well in the restaurant, because everyone had read about him in the newspaper before. He was ridiculed and laughed at for a long time, and he got the nickname Gongzij. In South Africa, Lu Feng is still waiting for news. He has been in contact with some high-level people in the past 2 days. What they revealed is that this time the United States is willing to take advantage of this opportunity to strengthen cooperation between the two countries. What the other party can give is definitely not just a company. It can be given. Lu Feng told them many times not to trust the Americans. Those people said that it was not commonplace. He could increase investment in South Africa in the future, and at the same time he would work hard to bring China closer to South Africa in business. But these words were so light in the eyes of the other party. After all, Lu Feng was just an ordinary businessman. In Europe and the futures exchange, everyone looked at the price of tungsten ore in front of them with surprise. For several days, tungsten ore continued to rise, all the way to the $80,000 mark, which is comparable to the price of gold. In the Schroeder Group conference room, John looked at the numbers displayed on the computer in front of him and couldn't believe it. Several experienced people stood aside with their eyes wide open. The price of $80,000 per ton was beyond their imagination. It's all caused by the quantum fund. What do they want to do? Our profit alone this time is 5 billion, right? The price is so high, are they going to run away? Everyone present looked solemn, and John felt it was impossible. The tungsten mine in South Africa had not resumed work yet, and it was impossible for them to deliver the product by the time limit. After thinking about it, there was only one possibility left for John, which was that the South African tungsten mine would resume operations in the near future, and they had already confirmed it. Thinking of this, John looked at the disk in front of him and said, "Call Lufeng." At the same time on Wall Street, Cyrus looked through the information in his hand, whispered a few questions to the manager next to him, closed the folder, and ordered, "Throw some away and give it a try." The next moment, a large contract of tungsten ore futures, which had not been traded in the London futures market for a long time, was sold, and the price immediately began to fall. For a moment, everyone stared with wide eyes. Maybe the tungsten demon king was going to end today. "Throw it away. Throw it away," someone in the trading room of Schroeder Group shouted nervously. John looked unhappy and asked the person next to him, "Has Lufeng's phone been connected?" "Not connected yet. The price of tungsten ore has dropped from $80,000 to $76,000, and is still falling. The selling price above is very heavy, and most people cannot handle it at all." When Robertson saw Cyrus selling, he immediately joined in. The market pressure increased instantly. Seeing this, retail investors holding futures ran away one after another, not daring to participate in this war. They were afraid that if the market squatted, they would be killed. The family was broken up and everyone died. South Africa, at 11 o'clock in the evening, Lufeng had already fallen asleep. The meetings in the past few days made him feel particularly tired and helpless. He heard the ringtone of his cell phone in a daze, struggled to wake up from his sleep, and reached out to fumble around. After waiting for a long time, I got the phone, picked up the phone and asked, "Who is this?" "Mr. Lu, Mr. John wants to talk to you." The other end of the phone looked very anxious. After a few seconds, the phone was handed over to John's hand, and then John eagerly asked about the situation of the tungsten mine in South Africa. Lufeng turned on the bedside lamp and leaned on the bedside, recounted the recent events, and said, "I can only tell you that I will try my best, and God will bless me for the rest." Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1179. Latest website. After John heard this, he told Lufeng to stay calm and not panic. He didn't believe that the United States could make a big difference in this matter. As long as Lufeng did not take the initiative to resume tungsten mine production, everything would not be a problem. After hanging up the phone, John asked the manager next to him, "What's the current price?" It just fell below $70,000, and the selling orders were very large. "Let the traders prepare funds, no matter how many orders they sell, they will eat them all," John said solemnly. Several managers nearby were stunned when they heard this. One of them advised, "They must be selling. It will be difficult for us to hold on at this price. I suggest maintaining the price first, and then fooling a group of retail investors after the market closes, hold high and fight high after the market opens tomorrow, and bring retail investors with us. This is safer. Can't you hear what I say? I'm responsible for this matter. We buy as much as they have," John said firmly. "Why do retail investors follow in when making money? This kind of suffering, let's do it ourselves." The few people couldn't persuade them at first sight, so they had to go down and give orders to the traders. There were less than 15 minutes left before the closing, and the futures exchange was already filled with wailing. People who had bought when the big selling orders started no longer wanted to live. No one could have imagined that the price could reach a level in half an hour. There were so many, some people were liquidated. Others didn't dare to take action when they saw this situation. They needed the support of the main force. Some people stood in the hall with red eyes and shouted unwillingly toward the big room, "Where was the main force? Where is the main force? We need support." Suddenly, a sum of money rushed in on the display screen in the exchange, and more than a dozen orders were taken in one go. The trading volume instantly increased, and then even larger funds rushed in continuously, with a sweeping momentum. Crazy shopping. The main force is coming. The main force is coming. Everyone was reveling, some were crying with joy, and some were questioning, suspecting that it was pump and dump, but the high points were recovered one after another. The funds seemed to turn on the money printing machine, and the sales orders were as fragile as paper in front of it. Buy. Eat in. Eat in quickly, it will be sold out. The retail investors who were crying and howling just now rushed to the trading desk to follow up frantically, as if they were not afraid of falling at all. On Wall Street, in Soros's office, a manager walked in and said, "All the futures contracts we sold have been eaten up. Now the price has returned to 75,000, and there is still half of the position left. Do you want to sell it?" Eat it all, Soros was a little in disbelief. The combined positions of the two parties were worth nearly 1 billion. Most people cannot afford such a large investment, not to mention that Schroeder Group has always maintained there are quite a few tungsten ore contracts. If they take them all, it will be equivalent to a monopoly. It's now May, and it's delivery time soon. Are they planning to buy a batch of tungsten ore at a sky-high price? Soros began to have doubts. He suspected that the information he had received was inaccurate. Otherwise, where did Schroeder's side get the courage to eat so much? Wouldn't they suspect that they would go long first and then go short? There are less than 10 minutes of trading time left, the manager reminded from the side. Throw it. Throw it all. Soros hesitated for a moment, then said, "Call Robertson and let him know." There were less than 6 minutes left for the market to close. People in the futures exchange looked at the stabilizing prices, and their hearts dropped in their stomachs. Just when everyone thought that the price had settled safely, a huge sell order suddenly appeared. It came out, smashed through all the buyers' defenses, and fell straight down. Everyone at the scene stared with wide eyes, and the sound of fake was everywhere. When the price broke through $70,000 again, a large amount of funds rushed out to protect the market, and the transaction was $500 million in an instant. In the last few minutes, a V-shaped killing was staged. It's closed, it's finally closed. The futures exchange is extremely quiet. Everyone has the illusion of surviving a disaster. A breeze passes through the door. Some people feel a chill on their backs. Only then do they realize that their backs are cold. Already soaked with sweat. Such an outrageous futures war was not only reported by the financial media. After the market closed, exchanges and the China Securities Regulatory Commission began to speak out intensively, and the national level also began to pay attention to this issue. South Africa, at 9 o'clock in the morning, Lu Feng received a call saying that someone from the top management wanted to see him. This was an excellent opportunity. Lu Feng hurriedly brought all the information and took the car half an hour later. In the reception hall, Lu Feng was taken to the designated position and stood there waiting. The decoration was quite serious, with expensive carpets on the floor. Guards could be seen when entering the door. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, a white man in his 50s or 60s stepped in. He was quite tall and somewhat bald. There were 7 or 8 people behind him who were talking from time to time. Seeing this, Lu Feng hurriedly stepped forward, stretched out his hand and shook it. "Hello, de Klerk. I am the person in charge of GFN Group from China, Lu Feng. Welcome, Mr. Lu, I have heard your story. I hope this meeting can solve some confusion for you. We always welcome foreign investment, the clerk said politely, holding Lu Feng's hand. The two parties exchanged simple greetings and then went to the living room. Lu Feng sat on the single square sofa. He didn't want to feel the size of the moment and said directly, I always believe that South Africa is a beautiful and peaceful country. Everyone can strive to create their own sky in every piece of land, and GFN Group has entered this land with such concepts and dreams, but what happened recently is really regrettable. GFN Group's investment in local minerals is quite large, and all procedures are legal. In order to increase production and ensure workers' human rights, we stopped production for maintenance. However, these actions have attracted criticism. All of this is disconcerting. This is unacceptable, and I believe you can protect the legitimate rights and interests of investors within the legal framework. That's right, Mr. Liu, the news I got is that when you acquired the tungsten mine, you did not make it public and it was suspected of being a monopoly. Many parties are already negotiating on this matter, the clerk replied. These are all the materials we acquired originally. Everything is in compliance with local laws, and I think there is no need for consultation. There is no third party in this matter, and there is no need for a third party. I am just a businessman, and I don't want to. This matter is mixed with other things. I am a very pure businessman. I only represent the enterprise. It does not mean that I represent which country I come from, Lu Feng explained. For some organizations and countries that make things out of nothing, we also feel very powerless, but I always believe that there is rule of law in this country. The information was simply flipped through a few times. They all knew what both parties were talking about, but there was a sense of powerlessness in this conversation. When Lu Feng listened to those words, he didn't feel like they were here to solve the problem, but more like they were here to comfort himself. After talking for half an hour, Lu Feng lowered his demands again and again. Finally, the other party said that to ensure the safety of people and property, let the local military help guard them, and ensure safety first. This matter cannot be finalized in a short time. Before leaving, Lu Feng took a group photo with de Klerk. Lu Feng held his hand and said, Sir, equality between people is very important, but I think equality between countries is more important. I agree with you. The other party looked at Lu Feng and agreed, shook hands firmly, and then left. Lu Feng returned to the hotel, told the ambassador about the conversation, and then called Ma Wanjun to tell him that the situation would be relieved in the near future. In any case, safety is the first priority. If safety is threatened, give up and hold on. At the same time, the British ambassador received a call and will meet with de Klerk in the afternoon to express his views on this matter. They believe that this matter is related to the rule of law and should be treated fairly. It cannot be interfered with by external factors. South Africa should make your own choices. Lu Feng was not idle in the local area. He found the best local lawyer to appeal and contacted the local court. Within the different time differences, there were constant calls between countries. This was an invisible confrontation. I reiterate again that you are not qualified to dictate in South Africa. It is a land of freedom and GFN Group is exercising their normal rights. This matter has nothing to do with Britain. Besides, this Lu Feng is your wanted criminal. We are not talking about this now, we are just talking about South Africa. I hope you understand that what you are facing now is not me, not the UK, but Europe. We are not a subsidiary of anyone. You were the ones who started this matter. No, it's you who are interfering. Who created this GFN Group? You actually speak for a company thousands of miles away? You are controlling Africa, you are colonizing. The night in South Africa is very pure and the starry sky is vast. Tonight, the tungsten mine owned by GFN has been taken over by the military, and all the refugees have disappeared. It is a rare piece. Lu Feng hosted a banquet for Ma Wanjun and others in a restaurant. The place was very lively. On the open-air balcony, Lu Feng stood there holding a wine glass and looking at the sky, feeling a little mixed in his heart. When I came here, I never thought it would be like this. I thought the whole world was the same as in China. This is my first time going abroad. Ma Wanjun looked at Lu Feng and said with some embarrassment, Mr. Lu, I will tell you, he said, for a big man like me, it was the first time I heard gunshots and I was so scared that I peed. Thank you for your hard work. This matter is no longer something we can control. Lu Feng took a deep breath and sighed, we are the majority of human beings, but so many people can only make such a little noise. The current situation is like a boat ride in the desert. Every step of the way is arduous. It is said that a poor person cannot join the crowd, but now it seems that the same is true for the country. Latest website.